back off to the northeast. I'll put a updated track on that system as it continues to kind of drift back into portions of mid-Missouri. Right now, just knocking on the door, but we're still seeing a little bit of rotation. So this thing is going to be kind of a long track from the southwest. This whole line has actually produced a decent amount of tornado warnings. We saw some in northwestern portions of Missouri. Thankfully, not made its way here until just now, but we're going to go ahead and put a track on a little bit of rotation that we're going to be seeing with this system. So that's going to be the major feature right there as it continues to make its way off to the northeast, close to about 40 miles per hour or so. See if we can get extended all the way up to there for us here. There we go. Here it is, Sedalia, 1019 for that updated track. So a little bit later than what we were just seeing with this system. We're going to continue to track it as it moves off to the northeast. So it's very important that if you are anywhere within this cone, that you are indoors. The best thing you could do is remain under ground, possibly if you have a basement, and make sure that you're going to be covering yourself and you have a way to reach out to other people, but not a time to be playing around, just because, like I said, this system has caused widespread damage as it's made its way back off into the northeast as we head throughout the overnight hours. So this system is continuing to track off to the northeast. I want to go ahead and put it into play, kind of the area that this thing is going to continue to drift off to the northeast. So there is the past tornado warnings with this exact system as it's made its way from southwest, passing through Montrose, eventually Clinton, and making its way back towards Johnson and Pettis County, kind of clipping the southeastern edge there of Johnson County, and eventually making its way into Pettis County. There you go. Going to be making its way a little bit closer to Sedalia. I want to put another track on that system. That way you have a decent heads up on it as it continues to surge its way back off to the northeast. And it's going to be a little bit of a fast mover. Like I said, earlier reports, we saw this thing moving close to about 50 miles per hour as it's continued to make its way off to the northeast into portions of mid-Missouri. So here we go. A little bit better further out trend there. Sedalia, that time, going to be a little bit quicker. So I'd put it closer to about 10 p.m. for your area. Smithton going to be 10:02. Pilot Grove 10:17. Boonville 10:29. And New Franklin well ahead of the system. Hopefully by then we'll start to see that rotation die out. But if it does not, you're looking at arrival time for that system at 10:30. And I also want to talk about what you're seeing a little bit there in yellow, kind of buried along the line. That is going to be that tornado watch in effect for western portions of mid-Missouri until midnight tonight. So this event is going to be extending well into the overnight hours. Definitely going to want to make sure you're keeping up to date, especially if you're going to be sleeping. It's going to be pretty late, and it'll even be affecting us into the early morning hours tomorrow. So as we kind of expect this trend to kind of continue with this system, we're going to be seeing this thing even with us until early portions tomorrow. That severe threat could be still possible even until close to 4 a.m. for portions of mid-Missouri. Right now, still seeing some heavier showers back towards Macon and Moberly. Could even see some gustier winds associated with that system, but we're going to go ahead and kind of zoom back in, see if we can get an update on this rotation for you as it continues to make its way back into portions of Johnson and Pettis County. So here's going to be that velocity there. So not seeing as much of a Boeing feature, but definitely should still be taking this very serious with this system as it continues to move off to the northeast. If you are going to be anywhere within this box, you are going to be in danger. You need to remain indoors in your safe place. So kind of want to highlight once again where we're going to continue to track a little bit of that area of concern, going to be right there in that circle, and that's going to continue to track its way off to the northeast. So out ahead of that system, winds are going to be knocking on your door, and eventually from there, if that rotation continues to hold, going to be making its way back towards Green Ridge. And once again, this is going to be in effect all the way until 9:45 tonight. A kind of longer track system as it continues to make its way through. This is all tied to a low pressure system just off to the west. And we're not done just yet. Even after the system, we're going to be tracking another secondary round as we head off into Sunday evening. So you're going to want to make sure you're staying weather aware throughout the next 48 hours or so. And then we're going to be in the green light. But right now, we're continuing to track this tornado warning, making its way back into southwestern portions of mid-Missouri, Johnson County, and Pettis County. Right now, 9:45. I'm going to actually ask Sori here, kind of bring him into this. I know it's a little bit later, kind of hard to see this, but Sori, are we kind of seeing any updates right now from the National Weather Service? What do we have?
Yes, we are getting some updates, at least about the kind of rotation that we are seeing. They aren't seeing any rotation tightening at the moment, but they are still seeing kind of a balanced line of areas of concern for that circulation. So they are going to continue to monitor this, of course, really not seeing any, I guess, improvement in the storm quality of the rotation, but not seeing any downtrends either. So they are definitely keeping a close eye on this system, of course. More of a narrow band that they are focused on at this point. But at that point, we are just seeing, of course, kind of the still possibility of some circulation across this line, which is why it is tornado warned until 9:45.
Yeah, like you said, definitely going to be another 20 minutes in that tornado warning. Not seeing it strengthen, but also, like you said, not seeing it starting to weaken. So definitely got to be on high alert with the system as it continues to track off to the northeast. So once again, taking another zoom out of this system. This is going to be tied to this long line of showers and storms pulling back into the region. Even associated with this exact storm, we could see the possibility of hail up to 1 inch in diameter and winds, that's right, up to 60 miles per hour, not even associated with this tornado warning, just this long line of showers and storms. Now, the best place that we're going to be seeing the possibility for this rotation is going to be just north of Calhoun. Still going to be an area that you're going to want to remain indoors until this passes, but I want to circle it once again for you. That way you kind of know exactly what we're going to be talking about with this tornado warning as it continues off to the northeast. So it is going to be a faster mover, looking close to about 50 miles per hour as it continues to kind of drape off to the northeast through portions of mid-Missouri. Next up for the system is going to be portions of southeastern Johnson County and southwestern Pettis County. Eventually, if this thing can hold its rotation tight and keep it together, next place you're going to want to kind of look at is going to be back towards Sedalia, a little bit closer to Highway 65 as it makes its way back towards Pettis County. So everybody out ahead of the system, we're going to be talking about Windsor. That's going to be coming up next. Green Ridge, and eventually, if it holds together, back towards Sedalia. I want to put another track on this system to give you kind of a heads up on exactly what to expect for the timing of this system. There it is, right there in red. You're seeing heavier downpours with this, so don't be thinking about going outside because you're not going to be seeing anything. You need to be in your safe place for this tornado warning as it continues to make its way back off to the northeast. So here we go, making its way off to the northeast, a little bit closer to Sedalia. The system was moving at about 50 miles per hour. Here we go. Sedalia, looking at arrival time, like I said earlier, closer to about 10 p.m. Smithton, 10:12. Pilot Grove, closer to 10:25. Boonville, a while away, but definitely going to want to make sure you're weather aware at 10:38. New Franklin, 10:39, as this system will continue to track back off to the northeast. This is all tied to this long line of showers and storms. Look at that. Even back towards southeastern Kansas, they're seeing multiple tornado warnings associated with this system. And earlier today, back towards northwestern portions of Missouri, we even saw some tornado warnings. So this does have a pass of creating some stronger conditions, and we are in a decent environment for this system as it continues to kind of track back through the region. Now, with it being throughout the overnight hours, one thing that we're kind of going to be running into is not many reports with the system. It's going to be hard to see if anybody is going to be in this polygon here for this warning. You're going to want to make sure that you're going to be back indoors in your safe place until this thing goes off. Remember, tornado sirens only meant to be heard outdoors, and at that, might not sign the entire time. So the best thing you could do is wait this out in your safe place. So kind of want to go back towards here. This is going to be some hail kind of wrapped in the system. This is what we call our Barron button. Anything in that purple is going to be a little bit of hail, and embedded with that is going to be the possibility of a little bit of rotation, once again, back towards Calhoun, making its way a little bit closer towards Windsor, and eventually back in line is going to be back towards Sedalia as this system continues to travel back off to the northeast. I want to go back to the Kansas City radar here. Actually, let's go to the Springfield radar. I kind of want to tell you a little bit of a different picture of this story. So there's kind of a little bit of the spike that we're looking at the rotation I kind of want to talk about. It's just going to be north of Calhoun. You're kind of seeing right here. I'll go ahead and highlight that for you. That way you kind of know exactly where I'm going to be talking about. There it is, going to be in that oval, going to continue to drape back off to the northeast. So just north of Calhoun, kind of in that segment in the area, making its way eventually right here into southeastern portions of Johnson County. And eventually, it's going to be making its way back towards Pettis County. So out ahead of that system, Windsor and Green Ridge. You guys are next up. Get in your safe place now. It is not a joke. This is a tornado warned system as we're tracking some rotation in the environment. I'm going to go ahead and switch back towards the Kansas City radar, kind of looking a little bit different there. Still seeing a little bit of the notch of that rotation as it continues to kind of bow back off to the northeast. So everybody in this polygon and even out ahead of it, back towards Sedalia, this is your heads up ahead of time. be in your safe place and make sure that you're going to continue to stay weather aware, because this is probably not going to be the only time we're going to be seeing some threats with the system throughout the overnight hours. It does have enough power to continue to surge back off to the northeast. And like I said, this is all tied to a greater system that's making its way back into portions of mid-Missouri. So eventually Columbia might not be seeing this rotation, but we're going to be seeing a lot of that heavier downpours. And as we kind of surge throughout the overnight hours, one thing we're going to be focusing on is going to be the potential for flash flooding, just because there's going to be so much rain tied to the system between Friday system all the way into Sunday system. We're going to be seeing the potential for rainfall totals anywhere from 2 to 4 inches. So if you are going to be out and about driving tonight, remember, if you see water over the roadway, turn around, do not drown. Not going to be worth it. Find an alternate route. So right now, the main thing we're going to be tracking is going to be this tornado warning. It's going to be in effect for southeastern portions of Johnson County, if you're just now tuning in, lasting until 9:45 in southwestern portions of Pettis County, making its way off to the northeast back towards Sedalia. I want to put a little bit of an updated time on this system. That way you'll know exactly what to expect and when it will be knocking on your door as it continues to make its way back off to the northeast. So the updated timing of this going to be towards that rotation there. Like I said, right now in effect until 9:45 is going to be looking at about a movement speed 48 to 15 miles per hour off to the northeast. Sedalia just before 10 o'clock, 9:58. Smithton, 10:07. Pilot Grove, 10:23. In Boonville, Missouri, 10:35. You got a lot of time, but when this thing does start to knock on your door, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're in your safe place. But also, just off to the northwest there, you might even encounter a little bit of rain towards Boonville. But the main thing with this system is going to be this rotation that could produce the possibility of a tornado. That is why it is currently warned. It has a past history of rotation with this system. Earlier today, we saw some reports that possible funnel cloud, unconfirmed, back towards Montrose, Missouri. But this system is continuing to drive these showers and storms off to the northeast. But with it, we're also going to be tracking the potential for some hail up to about 1 inch in diameter, and winds could be up to 60 miles per hour. So even if you're not embedded with this line of rotation here off to the southwest, you're going to want to make sure that you're going to be indoors away from windows when this thing does start to knock on your door, just because it's going to have damaging effects. We've seen some tree limbs down in southwestern portions of Missouri. Some of those, some people saying up to 5 inches on some reports that we saw in the National Weather Service chat. So definitely nothing you're going to want to take too lightly. Make sure you're in your safe space once again as it continues to pull back off to the northeast. Now I want to kind of zoom back in. We're going to look at the velocity. One thing we're going to be talking about with this is going to be pretty much the changing of wind. So red is going to be winds going away from the radar and green is towards. That's kind of how we start to determine a little bit of where we're going to be seeing this rotation. And it's going to be just off to the southwest of Windsor. You need to be in your safe space right now as this thing is continuing to knock on your door. Calhoun, you still got about 10 more minutes before you are in that safe space. Leeton, about 5 more minutes before it starts to continue to drift back off to the northeast. I want to go ahead and highlight once again exactly where we're going to be tracking the potential rotation for this system as it continues to make its way into southeastern portions of Johnson County and southwestern portions of Pettis County. Right there, that is going to be the main area of concern that we're going to be tracking with this currently warned tornado. Now, that is going to be in effect once again until 9:45. Could see winds up to 60 miles per hour and hail up to 1 inch in diameter. So here we go, kind of an updated city track on the system. Right now, currently on top of Bowen, just north of Sutherland, going to be kind of the area of concern as this system continues to kind of pull back in. A point of reference, Northeast Highway 2, going to kind of follow it back off to the east. If you're going to be anywhere well within this oval, though, you should be in your safe space right now. Areas ahead of it, though, getting into it. That way, if this rotation does continue to develop, that it will continue to kind of pull off to the northeast and you'll be ready when it does make its way knocking on your door. Now, one thing I do want to talk about with this rotation, it is not seeing too much intensification. That's a good thing, but do not want to take this lightly. At any point, this thing could rope out and potentially produce a tornado. So you're going to want to treat it like it's actually going to be on the ground, especially as it's produced even the possibility of rotation in the past. So it does have a history of producing kind of the elements and ingredients you need for this potential tornado for it to be put back on the ground. Now, once again, want to kind of zoom back out, talk about what we're seeing within the rest of this storm. We're still tracking that tornado watch in effect for western portions of mid-Missouri. That's going to be all the way until midnight tonight. After that point, we'll kind of see that severe threat shift back off to the east. Just because we're going into late overnight hours does not mean we're done with the severe coverage for this system. So even as it's heading a little bit closer towards Columbia, you're going to want to make sure that you're weather aware tonight. and staying in tune with us here at ABC 17 News and Fox 22. This system continuing to make its way back off to the northeast. This tornado warning currently going to be in effect until 9:45. So if it does not get expanded, looks like about 10 minutes that we're going to be tracking this system. We're going to continue to give you updates from the National Weather Service back out of Kansas City. That way we can kind of let you know what to expect with this system. But currently we're not seeing it weaken or strengthen. Good sign, because we're not seeing it strengthen. But once again, treat this like it is on your doorstep, an actual tornado, because it does have that upper level rotation that we're continuing to track. Now this system, like I said, tied to a lot of rainfall. So throughout the overnight hours, you're seeing all this red and this reflectivity. That is going to be heavy downpours, not downpours you want to be driving in, and potentially could even possibly cause the opportunity for some flash flooding to be pulling back towards mid-Missouri. So a lot of threats going to be on the table for this system as it continues to surge back off towards the northeast, making its way right now back into portions of Windsor, and eventually, the place we're going to be tracking after that is going to be back towards Pettis County and eventually Sedalia off to the northeast. I'm going to put an updated track on this system as it continues to surge back through portions of mid-Missouri. Once again, right now, well off to the southwest of Boone County, but eventually this thing is going to make it up its way to the northeast. The main thing we're going to be looking at with this system, though, is going to be those strong damaging winds and hail. Hopefully that rotation will continue to kind of pull back out of the area. So this system going to be a little bit of a fast mover. Reports earlier, close to about 50 miles per hour, but here's arrival time, what we can expect with this system. Lamont going to be 9:47, Sweet Springs 9:49 for sales, going to be 9:49, and Stover 9:53 with Sedalia. Still very close to that mark, holding steady on that speed right there. Looking at about 10 o'clock tonight as it is going to be making its way back towards Sedalia in portions of Pettis County. So this system going to be long tracking, still has plenty of energy available in the environment. Look at that. That's kind of a little bit of proof of how serious you should take it. That same line of storms back into southeastern portions of Kansas showing a confirmed tornado right there. You're seeing that in the purple there. That means that this whole system is capable of putting a tornado on the ground. That's why it has been warned, because we are seeing a little bit of that rotation of this system as it continues to drift back off towards the northeast. I want to go ahead and look at the velocity of this system. That way we can kind of see what we're kind of working with that rotation. So that main area of concern going to be back towards Windsor right there. Not seeing as much. There's that little bit of a Boeing feature. You see where that red starts to kind of meet back towards that green. That is going to be the potential for that rotation that could put a tornado on the ground. I want to highlight that for you once again. That way you have a good visual of where to see that. And we're going to zoom in a little bit more. That way you can kind of understand exactly where that's going to be in terms of where you're going to be at home. So zooming back in on that system, it's kind of following Highway 52 back off to the northeast, making its way through the heart of Windsor right now. Areas out in front of it, going to want to make sure you're in your safe space. So looking back off to the northeast, Green Ridge, be in your safe space right now because this system is continuing to make its way off to the northeast. Still in that tornado warning. This is going to be, once again, in effect for southeastern portions of Johnson County until 9:45 and southwestern portions of Pettis County until 9:45. And this thing is still not letting up on that rotation. It's not going to be very major, but at any point, I want to stress, this thing could rope out and put a tornado on the ground. We've already seen confirmed tornadoes associated with this line back into portions of Kansas. And this thing is kind of feeding off the same energy. It's a little bit warmer back there, a little bit more energy, but we're still seeing kind of very similar conditions back here as it continues to make its way into portions of mid-Missouri. I want to go back towards the radar, kind of tell the tale of the story here, where we're going to be expecting this thing to head back off to the next. So back down to zoom into Windsor there. That's going to be that path heading off to Green Ridge. I want to go ahead and put this thing into motion. That way you can kind of see the exact track on this system as it continues to make its way back off to the northeast. You see, I want to kind of actually zoom in on that right there. So one thing I want you to pay attention to, the exact location for that rotation is going to be that little bit of Boeing feature that we saw with the rotation making its way over Windsor. So you see right there where that yellow is going to be meeting that green and it kind of circles back out right there. That is going to be the main feature we're going to be worrying about with this for the rotation. I want to go ahead and go back towards the severe, and we're going to look at the Barren button. This is going to kind of tell us a little bit about the rotation and the hail this thing is going to be putting back out as it continues to track its way off to the northeast. So even just north of the system, back towards Johnson County, look at that. Going to be back towards Warrensburg and off to the southeast, Lamont, you'll see it soon. They're seeing the potential for some decent-sized hail up to an inch with this system. So even though you're not going to be in this tornado warning system, you're still going to want to make sure that you're going to be in a safe space because that could cause some significant damage. On top of that, we're going to be seeing winds up to about 60 miles per hour associated with this line of storms as it continues to make its way off towards the northeast. Now, I want to look once again back at the Kansas City radar as this thing continues to surge off to the northeast. I want to be treating this thing like a serious situation as we're continuing to see some rotation kind of tied to it. One thing I kind of want to focus on too is just off to the north. That could be the possibility of a little bit of rotation too. So Windsor, you're still going to want to make sure you're in your safe space, but look at that little bit of a feature there with the red and green meeting where it kind of pulls back out. Here's our latest radar update right there. Want to kind of create this whole area here as a main threat. And I want to also kind of surge back to the northeast. That's also kind of an area of concern. So that's going to be just off to the southwest of Lamont and just off to the east of Warrensburg. You're seeing kind of an uptick in that green and red. That is going to be the rotation in the wind. So even though we are still going to see that tornado warning in effect until 9:45 for southeastern portions of Johnson and southwestern portions of Pettis County, we're going to be watching a little bit of a turning of the winds back off to the north. So anybody that's going to be in Knob Noster, Missouri, and even off to the northeast Lamont, you're going to want to make sure, just be on the safe side. Go ahead and get into your safe space right now. Now, zooming back out on the system, once again, going to put a track on it. That way you know what to expect with these updated times as it continues to surge back off to the northeast. So here we go, back towards the northeast. I'm going to put two separate tracks. The first one going to be on that original rotation, and the second one kind of going to be that rotation we're seeing back off to the northeast, a little bit closer towards just west of Sedalia there. So Sedalia, arrival time still looking close to about 10:02. Smithton, 10:10. Pilot Grove, 10:28. Boonville, Missouri, 10:42, and well ahead of the system, back towards New Franklin at 10:44. Now, once again, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and put a secondary track on the system just because there is a little bit of concern with that rotation just off to the north that's going to be making its way back towards western portions of Pettis County as it continues to move off to the east in Johnson County as it's going to continue to be following what highway is that. We're going to kind of zoom back in here. That way we can give you a better landmark there. So it's kind of making its way back towards southeast 100th Road, but really the big thing I kind of want you to worry about with this system is going to be it's got rotation. It's moving off to the northeast. This thing could put a tornado on the ground. Here's going to be that track that I did just promise you for that secondary kind of swath we're seeing of rotation as it continues to head off to the northeast. So here it is right there. A little bit of a fast mover. Going to be putting it to the upper 40s on the system. Fast mover to the northeast. Lamont looking at 9:47, so about 6 minutes out right now. And we're looking at New Franklin, 10:41. Fayette, 10:48. I want to go ahead and see if there's any updates. Sawyer, are you seeing anything in chat? Maybe a little bit of a heads up what they're seeing on the rotation, especially with a little bit further to the north. Anything that they're kind of telling us on reports right now?
Yeah, so they're still kind of seeing the balance of winds along this specific line, but they aren't really seeing as many areas of rotation, or like you mentioned earlier, whenever you zoomed into that specific area of rotation, they aren't really seeing as many of those across the line of storms of the area of concern. So that is a good sign. And if this trend continues, they do not plan on issuing tornado warnings, at least downstream of this for now. Do want to keep that in mind and stress that just because they maybe release one tornado warning, that doesn't mean that more could come in the future. But as of right now, it is trending towards the downward side of possibly being able to let this go if they continue to see that activity of maybe those more, really those areas of rotation decreasing. So just keeping that in mind. We've only got a couple minutes left of this warned system, so we'll have to see what happens once this specific warning is expired.
Yeah, like you said, only a few more minutes left, but you should still continue to treat this like it is a tornado on the ground because it has been warned for that rotation and they haven't completely seen it gone away. Now, this system is going to continue off to the northeast, so even as the system continues to wrap up, which we're going to be staying live with this coverage until this tornado warning is out of the area and any more in the future, we'll hop back on, but once again, this system could still produce the possibility of a tornado. We're seeing that severe thunderstorm warning back to the southwest. Look at that. That's going to be in effect for Benton County, Missouri, 10:30. We're going to continue to track that system as it heads off to the northwest. I want to go ahead and put the radar back on that. That way you can kind of see what we're looking at as that continues with that whole line of showers and storms. I want to put a track on that system while we're still continuing to track that tornado off into southeastern portions of Johnson and southwestern portions of Pettis County. So this is going to be the severe thunderstorm warning that's making its way off to the northeast, kind of the same line of showers and storms. That's going to be that severe thunderstorm warning. Sawyer, do you know exactly what they're warning that for? Is that going to be 60-mile-per-hour winds and 1-inch hail with that system making its way back towards Benton County, possibly?
Yes, so it looks like that specific warning is for hailstones up to 1 inch in diameter or quarter-sized hail, and then winds up to 60 miles per hour. That's going to be moving to the east at approximately 25 miles an hour.
Okay, so that southwestern side a little bit on the slower side. I want to go ahead and update that track for you to get you a little bit more of an accurate side on that system, because that leading front of earlier today was up to 50 miles per hour when it was warned, but the southeastern flank of the system is a little bit on the slower side, so continue to move off a little bit more of an easterly trend than what we were looking at earlier. Going to look at the arrival back towards Lincoln at 10:13, Warsaw 10:14, and Stover, Missouri 11:04. That is going to be a severe thunderstorm warning making its way back towards portions of Benton County. And on top of that, we're still tracking that tornado warning that's going to be in effect. We'll see if they're going to be set to expire that system. It is actually 9:45 right now, so we're going to continue to track to see if there is any updates on that currently. But this area here is going to be the main area of concern we've been tracking on that system as it continues to make its way off to the northeast, and it's going to continue to drift off to the northeast. So even if this does set to expire as a tornado warning, oh, there it is, folks. Good thing to see. It's still a good idea, though, to make sure you're going to be indoors and up to date, because that same system still producing winds up to 60 miles per hour and hail up to 1 inch in diameter. That's moving to the northeast back towards Sedalia. Looks like they went ahead and replaced that with a severe thunderstorm warning. That is going to be in effect till 10:45 for portions of Pettis County along this line. But we're going to go ahead and hop off, get you back to your program here. And I just want to kind of talk a little bit about this just because you're not seeing anything in your area right now with that rotation. We've seen it possible, a confirmed tornado back towards the southeastern portions of Kansas. This line of showers and storms can produce some damaging winds, hail up to 1 inch in diameter. And as we head off a little bit later into the overnight hours, we could see the potential for some flash flooding. But we're going to continue to kind of keep you updated as we head throughout the overnight hours for this system. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and kind of hop off here as that tornado warning has expired.